Well, I think what's so interesting about the Pope's visit is that he personally and some of his policies dovetail with so much that's going on in the American scene right now, not just the Catholic Church, but overall in the United States. And for Francis to be this Latin American Pope coming to speak for world Catholicism, when he personally represents Latino Catholicism and Latina Catholicism, is really, really remarkable. Another thing that's very much dovetailing is that Pope Francis is coming to a United States in the midst of significant religious change. The Pew religious surveys of late have showed that the fastest growing religious population in the United States is actually those who are spiritual but not religious, who have no formal religious affiliation but who still believe in God. There's no way of saying that Pope Francis himself is spiritual but not religious, because he very much is associated with the biggest religious institution in the world. At the same time, the way he does religion very much has that appeal of broad values of compassion and personal interaction, and less focus on what the institution generates in terms of doctrine. His passion, his emphasis seems to be, how do we relate to our fellow human beings? And I think that's exactly what the spiritual but not religious crew in the United States really goes for, and why they, as well as Roman Catholics, are so excited about Pope Francis. Visiting prisons is just one of, innumerable personal good works, examples of how you relate to fellow human beings that he, throughout his papacy, has tried to exemplify for people. But to do that in the United States, where he will be visiting a prison in Philadelphia, is really remarkable at a moment when the U.S. as a whole is coming together to reassess its prison policies. So for Francis to come and to visit prisons and to make the prison population a full site of humanity worthy of attention and love and embrace from a religious figure is, I think, really notable and will spur that discussion even more. He's also notably at odds with some things going on in American culture, and to my mind those things are free market capitalism, women's role in society, and also the papacy itself. To explain a couple of those things, the United States is unabashedly about free market capitalism, and Francis has really included a critique of free market capitalism as part of his wish for people of Catholic conviction, and really all people of good faith, to reassess how we do business in this world and where humanity is going. The status of women in the Roman Catholic Church. Francis has abundant personal empathy for women, it's very clear, but he is not at the place of seeing a woman can do everything a man can do in terms of the structures of the Roman Catholic Church. There's no women's ordination. And finally, a point that's somewhat at odds with the scene of the United States is the fact of the papacy itself. The papacy, a lot of people forget, is an absolute monarchy. It's great to have a pope who's an absolute monarch when you like everything he's doing. There's also this structural component that, God forbid if Francis should move on too quickly and some other pope comes along that they don't like, the absolute monarchy is still there. I think the most interesting thing for me in seeing Pope Francis come to the United States is what's going to happen around the issue of women's ordination. I do think that, he will by no means come forward with some pronouncement on that in the time he's here, if ever in his papacy. However, I do think there are going to be protests. I do think there's going to be conversation. I think that, the buzz around the gap between his progressivism and women's status in the United States is going to be evident